Oh, how some of us take for granted where our next meal's coming from. Commissioned Patreon sponsored review. This one. Uh Timing wise, this works out well because apparently the sequel's now out. I heard it's nowhere near as good, but that's fine. I've seen the original. The Platform. Whew, this one's a lot. So this is oh God, how do I want to classify this? I suppose you could call it a horror movie. It's a horror movie in the same way that, say, like Cube is a horror movie. And Cube is actually a really good comparison in a number of ways, but I'll get to that. This is a Spanish film, and it is I guess, if I were to narrow down a more specific niche, prison dystopia film? I know you're thinking prisons are already dystopias. Yeah, but like this is a whole other kind of thing. So, what is the Platform? Okay. There is a facility, many floors. And there are people on each floor, on each level. And there's 2 residents at each level. There is a hole that runs continuously through every level, like through the center of the whole thing, there's a hole, which means they can look up and see how far away they are from the top, look down, see how far away they are from the bottom. I say that, it looks effectively endless in both directions from the point that we start. And they just stay there. You know, there's a sink with water, there's a toilet, and once a day, a platform comes down through that center hole with food. And it is expertly prepared food, gorgeous food, but each level eats, and the one below it gets whatever scraps and leftovers there still are, which means the further it goes down, the less there is left. And this could have been a very heavy-handed moral tale of, you know, class, human nature, or whatever. It manages to avoid that because it gives us a key central character and treats him as a character, not as an allegory, not as a stand-in for a point or a message. And even other characters, including characters who appear briefly, they are established quickly and feel like characters as opposed to people just espousing a certain way of being, even though they are also doing that a lot of the time. This does a really good job of balancing. There is definitely some commentary going on. There is the expected commentary about how those above take as much as they want and those below get scraps. But also keep in mind, people change floors once a month. Once a month, they are randomly reassigned to another floor. They don't know if they're going to end up lower or end up higher. And if you might think, well, if the ones who are now on the higher levels have been at the lower levels or know they could be at the lower levels, wouldn't they want to be kinder? No. No, I'm above them. I have what I want. Let me have it. And there's some additional things to cover certain logistics, like if you try and take food off the platform and just keep it, like keep it for later, store it up, the room starts to overheat, and it will continue to do so until it cooks you if you don't put the food back on the platform. So there's logistical stuff like that, but mostly, as much as it could have been, as I said, it could be very heavy-handed. It has a deft touch with its commentary on human nature, political allegory, etc. Because all that's definitely there. It's absolutely there, but it never loses sight of the characters involved. And that's what it takes to make something like this work. That's why Squid Game worked. Squid Game is really, really clear with its point and its purpose and its allegory and its political messaging target. But it also has characters at the center of what it's doing. So does this. Now, I made a comparison to the movie Cube. If you've never seen that one, it's similar in a number of ways, especially in that ultimately it is a one set movie for all intents and purposes. We get a couple of glimpses of other spaces, but every floor is basically just the same setting redressed slightly. And as a result, it is very confined, very claustrophobic, and it really just milks the sense of confinement and what that does to people. And we see some people try to be better. We see some people who give in to their worst instincts. We see some people who appear to have just completely snapped. And we see this rainbow of misery of people in this place. And I know the movie did well. It did well enough to get a sequel. But I haven't heard a lot about it, which makes me cautious about getting too much into spoilers about stuff that happens later, because there are some really interesting developments. There are twists in the story, but not in like, ooh, plot twist, here's a secret. Like, no, it just takes turns that you don't expect, and at points you're not necessarily expecting them. So it keeps moving forward in a really kinetic way that still at the same time feels pretty thoughtful for how, for any given scene, it's able to slow down and really give you time to take in what's going on and take in the people that this is happening to. So it knows when to slow down while keeping an overall pretty tight pace. The movie's just an hour and a half. Like, I've been seeing some really great hour and a half movies in the last couple of years. I've missed that so much. Nemona's an hour and a half. Gothic is an hour and a half. This is an hour and a half. Oh, I miss great hour and a half movies. Stop with the 2-hour slogs. But anyway, this, while it is a horror movie in that it is intense and it is going to show you some of the nastier parts of what people can do. It is gory at some points, not persistently so, but when it gets gory, it is uncomfortably gory. It is viscerally gory. Again, not frequently, not across the whole thing, but when it does it, it commits to it. So like, while given what it's doing, calling it a horror movie doesn't quite feel right in terms of your own comfort level of just nastiness and gore and seeing the dark sides of people and dealing with some really unpleasant moments and actions. You should probably approach it as if it is a horror movie. So if that kind of stuff in horror movies makes you squeamish, you should probably be squeamish about this as well. My hesitation to call it horror just largely stems from how the scares and the tension and the terror don't really feel like the central point, but it is the persistent mood. Kind of reminds me a little bit of another Spanish film in that sense called Time Crimes, which is a very interesting time travel little movie. And I would also hesitate to call that horror, but it does have horror aesthetic and horror energy. This kind of has a similar thing going on in that sense as well. Not to imply that there's time travel in this. There's not. It's not pulling that kind of stuff, but it's layered, and the stuff that you find out about how it works, because there's more to it than I have said, but I don't want to spoil. But as you find out and sort of the layers get peeled back and the little glimpses you get, and as you find out more about the characters that you get to spend more time with, or even as you encounter some of the ones you only spent a brief time with just to get a sense of who's here, it really just builds well. This was terrific. Intense, but terrific. If you are particularly a fan of single setting movies like Cube or Exam or things like that, definitely check this one out if it's passed you by up to now. The Platform. Have you seen it? What do you think about it? Have you seen the sequel? I have not heard great things. The impression I get is, well, a bit like Cube 2, to be honest. But whatever your thoughts on any of that is, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon's how I paid the bills. Is in fact how I was commissioned to take a look at this movie. Even if you can't help me out that way, like, share, and subscribe. They all help me out. Don't worry too much about it, though. Take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can just come on back next time you need a break. And now to give thanks to my highest supporting patrons. Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfula, Goddess Elida, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Oliver B., Melissa Pedersen, Movie Turtle, Ulrich Bogdan, Loki Eris, Linda Walters, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Bernabe Lex the Poodle, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Quite Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Adam RDL Taylor, Pau Baraba Jago, Mira G, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. I don't know, it feels right that it's October the first time you're seeing all three of these at the same time.